Hello, this is Chrigel from the band Eluveitie and you're watching Impact Channel. Cheers.
Here we are today with Chrigel from Eluveitie. Hi everybody. You're back in Dublin, welcome back.
Thank you.
How is it to play for the Celts again?
Yeah, wonderful. Always super happy to be here. Today, unfortunately, it's actually kind of a bummer that we don't have that much time. The show is quite early and we have to leave pretty much after the show directly because we have to catch a ferry. So there's not that much time we can spend in Dublin, unfortunately, but yeah, it's always cool. Always really cool to play here.
Do you have a dream band that you would like to bring on tour one day?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of cool bands around, and but you know, after all, touring is about touring. It's about playing music, and personally, I don't care too much with what bands I'm touring with. I'm always getting along with all the bands we're touring with, and yeah.
Okay. So, obviously you are quite passionate about history. Can you please tell us where this is coming from?
No.
Okay.
Because I don't know. Yeah, it's just always been a topic in my life since I was a little boy, and I don't know where it came from originally. I have no idea. It's just kind of always been there in my life. And, but then again, you know, I mean, yeah, of course I have an affinity, let's put it that way, for history. But basically, I'm just into Celtic culture and Celtic history, and that is at least partly, I suppose, because of my homeland, Switzerland, where I grew up, and when I went to school, I heard the stories of the ancient allegiance and all that in school already. So that might have had its impact, but yeah, it's just kind of always been there.
And is it mainly fact-based history that you're interested in, or is it also the spiritual side of it?
Well, there is. I don't think you can actually split that. I mean, if you want to study and how do you say, explore the culture scientifically, and I'm only doing scientific stuff. I want facts, and then you also have to explore the spiritual side of the culture, because without the spiritual side, the culture is not complete. Yeah. In that sense, yeah, of course, I'm very much interested in the spiritual side of the Celts, but always on a scientific level. There's a lot of crap being spread around the internet, which, well, I'm not judging. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with all the neo-pagan, whatever kind of stuff, and all that. That's all good. I'm not interested in it, but it's all good. But I have a problem if people call that Celtic, because it's not. I mean, it might be inspired by the Celtic culture a little bit, but that's it. In fact, if you explore the Celtic culture, you will find out that there's not that much you can know about the spirituality of the Celts. There are some few things you can know, and those ones are really fascinating. But especially if it comes to the religious aspects, there's not that much you can know, and it certainly is not enough to kind of make a religion out of it or something. Kind of make a belief system out of it. That just doesn't work. It's not. You just don't know, And you can have a belief system, but then it's not the same as the Celts had, and so there's no point in actually calling it Celtic. That's what I'm saying. So yes, I am very much interested in the spirituality of the Celts, but on a scientific level, and I'm just trying to study it, everything we can know about it today.
Yeah, because they didn't even write it down, as much as I know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they wrote like any other culture, but they refused to write about spiritual topics, because the Druids thought that on one hand it's not good, because you know beliefs and stuff like that you should have in your heart, and not in a book where you can just look it up. And secondly, they said that you know if you have like a tenet, a saying, something like that, as soon as you write it down, it becomes a dogma. It loses its flexibility, and that's what they wanted to avoid. And yeah, that's why they didn't write anything down spiritually.
You mentioned that you had this affection for history also, like you heard the stories already in school, historical stories. How much do they teach about the Gaulish or Celtic history in Switzerland in school?
Well, not that much. I mean, you know, in ground school, like for the little kids, you know, you have like, you learn history and you learn geography, and then you just hear, you know, the origin of your own country. Like, so I think that's the same everywhere, in every country, and of course then, you know, the Celts played an important role in that story. So that's basically what you hear. You know, you learn about the ancient Helvetians and hear some stories about like Orgetorix and all those people. But that's basically it.
What do you think, what's the message of this ancient culture, like the Gaulish culture, to today's people?
Skip fast food, probably. I'm serious. No, honestly, I don't think they have a message or something. I mean, there's always something you can learn from other cultures, and that's also something why I think that it's important to look back in history, because you can always learn from history. You know, it helps you understand who you are, where you come from, and it also gives you the chance to learn from past mistakes and so on. But yeah, the fast food thing is actually, you know, being fat was regarded as a shameful thing in Celtic culture, and for the man, unfortunately, only for the man. I don't appreciate that. They have like standard-sized belts, and if you needed a custom-made belt because you grew too fat, you actually had to pay a fine for that. So I think that's a good mindset.
Is there any symbol that means a lot to you?
No. Not that. I mean, there are some Celtic symbols and they have their meanings, and I appreciate them, but it's not. You know, I appreciate all of them.
Okay. Where do you go for inspiration? And I don't necessarily mean only musical inspiration.
Well, to me, the most inspirational place ever is actually the mountains, because it makes you feel very small, and that's a good feeling. You realize how small and unimportant, and you know, just how do you say, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, your life is just a vapor. It's insignificant, and that's a good place to realize that is, you know, in the middle of the mountains. That's what I appreciate.
And what about people? Are there any inspirational people that you can think of, like writers or anything?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's not a particular name that springs to mind at the moment, but I mean, you know, during the last almost 40 years now, I came across quite some interesting people, and I think all of them have something to say. To be honest, actually, I think it probably also has something to do with your own mindset. If you meet people with the right mindset, you can actually learn a lot from everyone. So there's a lot of cool people around.
If you could go back in time, which era or what kind of place would it be where you would go back to?
Well, for staying permanently?
No, just for holiday. Yeah.
Good, okay. Because for staying permanently, I wouldn't go back, I guess. But for a holiday, yeah, I would go back around 2,000 years, and I would stay in Switzerland. Just out of curiosity, you know, to cover up all the things science can't cover up today. So.
Yeah. Eluveitie started as your project. What was the challenge for you when you expanded into a band?
Becoming a band actually wasn't that much of a challenge. It was in the beginning because I didn't want Eluveitie to be a mere studio project in the beginning. I always wanted it to be a band, but back then this combination of styles, metal and folk music, was not common at all. There was no folk metal scene or something like that. And as a matter of fact, it's been almost 10 years before I actually founded Eluveitie when I started to try to form a band like that, and I just never succeeded for almost, I think, for 8 years or something. And the thing was that when you went around in the metal scene and you asked people, yeah, I want to form a death metal band, but with bagpipes and whistles, people just thought, are you crazy or what? And it was vice versa, like most people in the folk music scene, they barely even know what metal music is, and if they heard it, they thought, oh my god, what is this? And it was basically impossible to bring both kinds of musicians together, and that was actually the reason why I made it a studio project in the beginning, because then no one actually needed to kind of join a band. Everybody could just learn his or her lines on the instrument, come to the studio, recording, and leave again. The story. And that's how it worked. But afterwards, when we turned into a real band, it was still not very easy, but it was a lot easier because on one hand I could show them a CD and say, look, listen to that, that's how it sounds. And B, I could show them like the fact that the first release got sold out immediately and got great reviews everywhere, and so I could show them all that and say, oh, it's not a bad idea, it seems to work, and so that made it a lot easier.
There were many changes in the lineup throughout the years. How did this affect the music? Did it affect the music at all?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, of course, every musician has his or her own way of playing and feel of playing. So in that sense, I'm sure it kind of does, or it did affect the music. But I mean, basically, it's me to actually write the music, and a lot of the folk instruments I usually record myself. And so in that sense, no, it didn't affect the music that much. I mean, Eluveitie was still Eluveitie. It will always be Eluveitie.
But now the members contribute a bit more, I think, to the new songs.
Yeah, it's basically Ivo, actually, one of the guitar players. I started to work more together with him, like over the years, which is good.
Okay. Apart from expressing yourselves, is there any kind of mission or message that you're trying to send? Okay.
No, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of music being used as kind of a medium for transporting messages or something like that. Plus, I'm not the person who would like to, go around and tell people, preach at people or something like that. I think everybody should make his own thoughts. But then again, what I'm doing within my lyrics is basically narration of history. And as I said earlier, I think it's always a good thing to look back in history, because you can learn from it if you want to. And so, I mean, if someone listens to our albums and deals with the lyrics and wants to dive into history, I'm happy about that, of course. But that's not the reason why I'm writing it. Eluveitie is about the music, and basically I write the lyrics for myself just because it's something that means a lot to me.
And is there any song that means more than the others?
Not as such, actually. Like every single song, each single song it's kind of special meaning to me. It's like a different one from song to song, but like kind of like every song, and everyone means something to me.
What did you do before Eluveitie?
I playing music. I mean, I had a regular job besides playing music, also in the beginning of Eluveitie, of course. But I'm playing with bands since quite a long time. I formed my first death metal band in 1991. Yeah, and since then I'm playing in bands.
And what would you do if you wouldn't do Eluveitie? I guess you would play in a band.
Yeah.
And what would that be? Would it be a similar one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do you have any hobbies or side projects going on?
Not really. Basically, due to the fact that there's not that much time. I mean, I love cooking. I like to cook, but usually there's not that much time left to, you know, prepare some real nice dishes, because in my opinion that means that you stand in the kitchen for like 5 hours or something like that, and usually I can't afford to do that. Same for the side project. I mean, I started a side project, which is kind of a solo project, which is like just pure acoustic traditional folk music, traditional Irish music. But yeah, you know, we had a tour in, when was that? 2012, I believe, or 10 maybe. 10 it was, 2010. And actually, my original plan was to have that album released before that tour. And now it's 2014, and I haven't even started recording. So, but one day I will do that.
Okay.
But usually there's not that much time.
Which is good in a way.
In a way, that's good, yeah.
How is the metal scene in Switzerland at the moment?
I wouldn't know. I'm not at home that often. And when I am, then I gladly like sit in my room and, you know, enjoy the quietness and the silence, and I wouldn't go out. And, you know, so, I know that there's a lot of amazing bands from Switzerland, but yeah, it's been years that I've actually really been a part of, you know, the metal scene, because, you know, we're on tour all fucking time, and yeah, as I said, we're actually not at home that often.
You are in partnership with Honda.
Yeah.
How did you find each other?
I'm not even sure, to be honest. I think they contacted us at some point, and yeah, the chemistry was just amazing between the two of us. I think they just, you know, it's Honda Switzerland, and they just tried to, you know, to find some new and unusual ways and promotional ways and collaborations, and yeah, that's what they did. Yeah, it seems to be working. It's cool. It's very cool people. Yeah.
The band U2 allied with Apple, and after that, when people got their iPod, all the iPod users received U2's new album.
Yeah, I read something about that.
And what do you think about this kind of advertising, or how you call it?
I don't care, honestly. You know, there's the saying, there is no bad promotion, there's only promotion. And in that sense, it probably was good. You know, everybody was talking and writing about U2. Of course, most of the people were pissed off, but they were still writing about U2. So in that sense, it probably was good. At least it was promotion. I don't know. I wouldn't do something like that, personally. I mean, if Apple would one day come up and do some kind of a cooperation, of course, yeah, why not? But I would never do some, you know, how do you say, force someone to listen to music, you know? I mean, those songs, as far as I know, I don't have an iPhone, but as far as I know, it worked that day, that just a normal update you had to make just also included some U2 songs or something like that, I believe, right?
I'm not sure, but probably.
So, something like that. Well, in the end, people actually did not have the choice to receive those songs or not, and that's something I would never do. That's just retarded.
But you're very open about your music. I mean, Origin is out there in Spotify with comments and everything on it, so...
Yeah, as I said, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, that's just, you know, that's just how things are today, you know. The only thing that pissed me off, that I think is not correct, is to force people to get to something. It should always be people's choice.
Yeah. And what do you think about downloads?
Good. Well, it's the same. I mean, you can be angry about it or not, but come on, let's face the fact, that's just how it is today. and it's not going to change. And on one hand, you have to say, of course, every musician loses money in that. All the record companies lose a hell of a lot of money by that, so it's also a reason why the music business has heavily changed during the last 10 years. But then again, you know, there's a lot of downloads from countries where people probably not, have been able to buy the album, or probably they couldn't afford the album or something like that. So it's good that you still have the album, and in that sense it's also free promotion, you know. So you lose money, but it's also promotion. So I think, okay, that money we lost, let's look at this as money we invested in promotion. It's the same with everything. There's a good and a bad side about it. I don't care about that.
If someone would decide to make an Eluveitie tribute album, which bands would you like to hear on it?
I really wouldn't care. I'm sorry, I'm probably pretty boring interview part. But I really wouldn't care too much. I would be really curious about everybody. Well, I'd be really curious about a cover version with a cooperation between Katy Perry and Eminem.
Really?
Those two together doing an Eluveitie cover, come on! It would be amazing.
Yeah. And what would you do as a cover? Is there any song that you would love to do yourself?
Well, we once had, when we released a couple of years ago, we released a Chrigel, and then we had the idea to make a bonus bonus album with acoustic cover versions of songs we like. But after all, we didn't do that, but we tried some few things out, and the first song we started working on was Breathe by Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
That actually sounded pretty cool.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Can you please name your 5 favorite albums of all times?
Yes. First one would be Old Hag, You Killed Me by the Buffy band. Second one would be any other albums of the Buffy band, which is like a traditional Irish band from the 70s. Then for sure there's Clandestine by Entombed. Anthems to the Walking at Dusk by Emperor. And that's getting difficult. Probably Serenades by Anything.
What's your philosophy in a few words? Let's say 5 words.
5 words. Why gig? I don't know, that's more than 5 words. Or 4 words. Don't care too much.
Do you have a message to the fans?
Don't care too much. No, come to our shows and let's have a good time together.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for the interview.